We are the One Story Podcast. We believe in the power of a story. Everyone has a story, and that story is meaningful. Your story can make a difference. Your story can inspire others. Your story is important. At the same time, ultimately, everyone's story is a part of one story, the big God story.
It's not what you said. You're not who you said you were. When are you alone? When will you come back home?
Yeah, this is the One Story Podcast, episode 14, coming at you live and in person. Actually, it's a podcast, so it's a recording, but we hope you enjoy. My name is Drew.
My name is Isaac.
And we are excited.
The One Story Podcast.
That's right. And this is a special episode today. As we get into this, you'll see why. Before, let's touch on the fact that we're recording tonight, and it is Good Friday. We just finished a Good Friday service.
Yeah, we did.
Here in Chino, California.
Worshipped our little heinies off.
Yeah, it was a good service. Just really made us reflect on the sacrifice that Jesus made for us. And we wanted to point out the fact of what this podcast is and kind of where it stemmed from. We've talked about this before, and the fact that, we're just a couple regular dudes, a couple dads that are...
Well, I'm a little bit above regular.
Well...
Yeah, I'm a little bit above average in every sense.
You keep telling yourself that. And, we're not pastors, we're not teachers, we're not experts on this.
Nope.
We just feel that we want to be faithful to God's call in providing a platform for people to come on and tell their stories of how God has become real in their life and changed their life. And we've had a great handful of guests over the past, what's it been now, 3 months?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
3 months.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to highlight the fact that, Good Friday and just the Christian story and the Christian belief that we have is just the fact that, this is a fallen world, a sinful world, and we're all born into sin from back in Genesis, the fall of man that introduced sin into the world, and then the Bible telling the story of God's cosmic rescue plan for us, and that throughout the Old Testament through the Jewish people, the Israelites, and then coming to a head with Jesus coming to earth, God incarnate, Jesus being the Son of God. With John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Basically saying that Jesus was there from the beginning and is God.
The Word became flesh. That's my favorite.
Yeah, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we observed his glory, the glory of the one and only Son of the Father, full of grace and truth. So that's the hope that we have. And then the story of Jesus being here on earth and the lessons and the example that he gave us of being a perfect person. He was God and man in the same, fully man, fully God, which is kind of really hard to grasp, and I don't think our minds can completely grasp that. But that's the claims that he had. And he was called out for being, declaring that he was God. That was the reason why he was crucified, because the Jewish leaders at that time, the Pharisees, called out blasphemy of the things that he was saying. And so he was put to death as a innocent man, and ultimately the reason for that was because of, from the beginning, to break that bondage of sin that we all have and we're all born into. And so he died on a Good Friday, and that's why we call it Friday, Good Friday. But he died on the cross for the sins. He was the ultimate sacrifice to atone for sin, and then on the third day, on Sunday, he rose again. And that's what we get to celebrate Easter season. And so this Sunday, that's the hope that we have as Christians, is that Christ rose again, and that we can have life in him.
Powerful. Couldn't have said it better myself. Literally.
But that's what we believe. That's what Isaac and I believe. And
that's what our podcast is based around. That foundation is the story of God and
right.
Jesus incarnate and God incarnate. And what we're trying to do is just witness. We're being our guests, me and Drew. We're just trying to witness to the living God, which is Jesus Christ through the Holy Spirit, and just how He's working in our lives, what He's doing for us today, how we're get to just experience Him in just everyday stuff, and you don't see it. I mean, it's the Holy Spirit. You can see it. I think I saw God when I gave you. If you listen to episode 1, I had given Drew a word, and when he had called me and told me that, pretty much that word was coming to fruition. I said I saw a white light, and I think I couldn't explain it then, but then when you read about Paul, and then when God revealed, when Jesus came to Paul, and he, they couldn't see. It was like a bright light,
blinding light.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I saw God. so you can't see it. My point is, it's He works in so many different ways, and you can hear Him. You can see Him through miracles. You can feel His love through the Holy Spirit. You can be filled. Just if you haven't experienced it, I would definitely just open your heart and. I say it all the time, open your eyes, listen closely.
The tagline.
Because that's the way you experience Him in those different ways, and it's just awesome. And I'm just happy that we're just blessed that we have this platform to share with whoever's willing to listen, whoever's has the capacity to listen and hear these stories and hear how Jesus is working and hear His story. It's our stories, but it's His story,
part of His
through us.
Yeah, and we have different guests on from different backgrounds and walks of life, and maybe some different beliefs here and there. But the main thing is what I kind of talked about in the beginning there, those key foundations of Christianity, of the fact that Jesus is the Son of God, that He died for our sins, and if we believe in Him, that we, like it says in John 3:16, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever should believe in Him will not perish but have everlasting life.
Powerful.
That's the gift that He has for us just by believing in Him. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to perform this, or that. It's just, hey, Jesus is God. I'm a sinner. I need Jesus. I believe in you. I want to be your disciple.
Yeah, our salvation is granted by faith.
Amen.
Faith alone.
So with that little Good Friday message for you all, I hope you enjoy that and think about that and dwell on it.
And if you didn't go to church, just turn off the podcast now. Stop listening. Unsubscribe.
No.
Just kidding.
Yeah. So, episode 14 with Isaac LeBrija.
LeBrija.
Oh, dang. So we talked about this from the beginning. So it's obviously a podcast about telling stories, and Isaac and I both have our own stories, our own testimony. And we talked about, should we do them right away? Should we, that should be the first 2 stories. We did do the first episode, which is kind of the genesis of the podcast and how it came about, and we give a little background of ourselves as we go along. But we kind of were saying, okay, we won't do it in the beginning, but when people start asking, or like, well, when are you going to tell your story? And that's when we would start considering it and do it. And that's kind of what's happened. So we've had several requests of, hey, let's hear your guys' story.
And then Drew's been bugging the heck out of me.
So I said that since I did Cuba, the story from Cuba, I said, okay, Isaac, then you're going to do your story next, or before me, and then I'll do mine after that.
Yeah, and
not that it had to be that way, but...
Well, it wasn't going to be that way. I was resisting. I was like, no, I'm good. I just had a different idea of how I wanted my story to come out. I was not so concerned with my story because I just thought it was kind of not important or not that good.
But it is, because we believe everybody's story is important, right?
Well, you'll find out why I don't think my story is that good.
No, I got you.
But hearing everybody come in and all our guests just being so vulnerable and just really opening up their lives. I mean, the last few episodes, Chris Gursey was someone, like I said, he's a tough guy, and he was being vulnerable with us. And then we had a couple episodes ago, Brittany Sawyer, who, really just put it all out there, you know, and really just, she did it because she was just hoping to be able to reach people and just understand, let people know they're not alone.
Yeah.
You know, all our stories are unique, but similar. I mean, someone is going to go through or has gone through whatever you have gone through.
Right.
But, and so that kind of put me in a position where I started to feel, I don't want to say guilty or anything, but I just, I did feel that, I wasn't being, I want to say honest. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but I started thinking about Jesus and how Jesus is the truth. And that's when I kind of realized, like, I need to be truthful and be honest and be open and be vulnerable, just like all the other One Story alumni. And kind of, you know, everybody else was jumping into the fire that we created. And then, you know, we're like, oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You guys are, look at you guys, you know, and then I'm not even doing it myself. And so I just felt convicted and encouraged, mostly encouraged by everybody that gave their stories. And,
Right.
and I had called you, I was like, all right, let's do this,
do
you
it.
know?
So Isaac, this episode's going to share his, and then shortly after, if not a couple episodes after, I'm going to do mine. And that's really just, maybe we were a little naive to it. Maybe we should have done this in the beginning, but I mean, this is how it's happening. I know that there's listeners out there that aren't from people that know us directly. And so hopefully you that are out there, you know, out of state, out of country, that's listening, you'll get a picture of who we are, a little bit of better picture. And we hope that you appreciate that. So we're going to kick this thing off. So
I come off overconfident and
really?
And how I love talking about myself and how I love, you know, getting mic time. It's like
I hadn't noticed.
But now that it's all about me, I don't know. I feel like I just want to let you take the wheel.
Backed up in a corner now.
So no, what I just want to maybe just before I start, I'd give some give who I am. I'm a husband, a father of 3.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a son of 4. I'm a brother of 2. I got a younger sister and an older brother, so I'm a middle child. Hashtag middle child problems.
We'll get into that.
And you know, I'm just here to. Oh, I'm a Christ follower. I think that's probably one of the biggest things.
That's a big part of it. So what was where are you gonna take us in the beginning? What's the beginning?
Well, and then I think just real quick, just to kind of round that out, I feel that, and I struggle with feeling like I'm an outcast. I'm ashamed most of the time, and I mostly feel unworthy. So this all starts from on my mom's side. My grandparents are from Mexico. Okay. My great grandfather on that side was a. You ever heard of the braceros?
No.
So post World War II, actually during World War II, post World War II, they, you know, because of people were at war, they needed people to do agriculture. Okay. So there was a thing called the braceros program, and what they did, they brought immigrant workers to work the farms. So, and that's how.
This is World War I, you said?
World War II.
Oh, World War II. Okay.
And so that's how the Rodriguezes, my mom's side of the family, came to America, and that's how that started. My grandfather was born in Mexico, but then got to come over and go to school and do all that stuff. And
yeah.
And then I think he and my grandma got married like 15, 13, like they were young. So it was just different time. So yeah. But that's how that worked out. My dad's side's a little bit more vague. I don't know. My dad just just rough childhood, you know, one of those things where I understand now, because there's a lot of stuff that I don't like to think about either. Mm-hmm. And so he doesn't really open up a lot about that. But I do know that his dad You ever heard of the Pachuco movement or the Pachuco boys?
What is that?
Like the Zoot Suiters? He
was a part of that?
Yeah. He
Hobby?
was like, yeah. Not Hobby, not my dad.
Oh.
His dad.
Oh, his dad.
My grandfather.
Oh,
I never
gotcha.
met him. He was an alcoholic, died of cirrhosis of the liver.
Oh, wow.
And my dad was young. My dad was probably like I think he said it was like 20 or something like
Jeez.
that.
Yeah.
He never really knew him. Bad, just wasn't a good situation. But I
Right.
seen a picture of him and got like one of those pin mustaches and just like.
And this is like in California, LA area and stuff?
Yeah. East LA. Yeah. So he was, kind of like going like just for a little background on that. Same thing. A lot of Mexicans moved to California for work, for labor work.
Yep.
And they were all put in East LA. East LA was like an area where they were all housed. And that's like where the vadios started and neighborhoods and gangs and stuff like that, because they were forced to live in a certain part of LA, which is East LA.
Right.
And then my grandfather and my grandmother came up out of that, and he was a Pachuco boy. And then my dad was just derived from that. Grew up in Boyle Heights. He was an athlete. He was a runner, and he went to Salesian High School. I think he was a CIF champion in the mile. Went to state, but he didn't place. So, and then him and my mom met through. My mom was at an all-girls school in LA. She grew up in South Central. My dad grew up in East LA, and then because they're all boys school, he went to an all boys school. She went to all girls school.
Oh, okay.
So
they were like sister brother school or whatever. And
I think my dad was actually friends with one of my uncles, and then that's how they met. And then they
got hitched,
kissed a little bit. And things got a little crazy, and then 9 months later. No, actually, I'm the middle, so. But that's kind of just about my parents. And I was born in Bellflower, but raised in Whittier my whole life.
Okay.
I mean, even when I met you, which was in high school, I was still living in Whittier. I lived in different parts of Whittier, but
the same house, or kind of just, or
no, I lived in
bouncing around a little bit.
Yeah, because my parents divorced when I think I was like 4 or 5, and I've talked about this before. Where my dad had left, and I didn't
You were at that age to where you almost didn't even notice, or
and so he had left, when I was like 5 or whatever. So he was gone.
And then how much older is your brother?
My brother's 6 years older than me.
6 older.
So so when my dad left me, my brother had to be like 11 or 12 or something like that.
So maybe he knew what was going on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then
I
can't
speak for him, but I think he definitely noticed. And so I think he actually took it hard.
And then my sister's how much younger?
She's 6 years younger than me.
Oh, so you guys.
So there's
6 years apart. Yeah.
I think. Sorry, Mom, but I think my sister's a love child. I think that was like the tail end. There was like that. I don't know what you would call it, but
right. Okay.
So she actually, I think from what I understand, my dad was already gone when she was born.
Okay.
But so that was kind of my earliest memories. It was already kind of a little weird because my dad was gone. We moved from, because I think actually my earliest memories were growing up in West Whittier, and everything was kind of cool. Actually, I do remember we had a condo. My mom would listen to, I don't know why I have memories of my mom. We had a record player, and she would listen to Anita Baker a lot. Do you know who that is?
I can't think of any.
If you heard
a song,
you would definitely.
Yeah. Okay, I'll look it up after.
Anita Baker. Actually, when I hear it's like elevator music. I think you'll. But when I hear it, I get kind of nostalgic. But I remember because my parents are young. There were. I mean, when I was like 3 or whatever, they were in their 20s. So they were probably in their mid to early 20s, actually.
Right. Okay.
I think my mom had my brother when she was 18. And then I was 6 years later, so it would have been what?
24.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
So anyways, but, listening to Anita Baker, and they would have their friends over, and, they were still kind of partying a little bit, you know. We would be there. My mom said I used to go and drink all the bottoms of the beers.
Oh, Jesus.
And I actually do kind of
makes a lot of
that.
sense.
I do kind of remember that. I remember, like, because I have vague memories, but that's something I kind of remember. And then I remember my dad working out a lot. He had my dad was like an amateur bodybuilder.
Yeah, he's
pretty.
when I met him, it was like he was pretty intimidating.
Yeah, really?
Well, I mean, not that he was like mean or anything, but just kind of had that look. Just
I have to show you pictures. He actually he was yoked.
Yeah,
he was yoked.
Oh, I believe it.
But I remember him working out, and I think that's why I didn't really have a huge relationship with him. Like, I wasn't super close with him because he spent a lot of time at the gym. He worked a lot, for one. Spent a lot of time at the gym, and then spent a lot of time with my brother. Because my brother played football and baseball, and he was kind of older, and I was a little kid. So,
but you split time with your parents
after the divorce?
Yeah.
Okay. But so that's just kind of like how that was, and then he left, and then my mom. I remember we moved to. It was like a back house, and that was like it was kind of like Uptown Whittier, and we lived there, and that was like kindergarten, and we lived there. And that's when, like, it was just a weird time, but I didn't notice. So I was still chilling, you know, still like having.
So it's
a good
more
time.
looking back at it, the whole situation.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, when you say that it was weird, but you didn't notice.
No, yeah.
So like now when you look back, it's like, oh, that's
well now when I look back on it, it kind of bums me out, you know, because I remember there were times where, I remember there was like a time where we didn't have hot water. Like the gas bill didn't get paid, and then times where we didn't have lights, you know, and
just struggling. I mean, struggling to make it, and
yeah, it was tough. She was my dad just left, you know, so and he didn't leave in the best way either, you know. He kind of left my mom hanging. I mean, I'm not to badmouth my dad. I mean, I have a good relationship with him now. But that's just what happened at the time. And, but needless to say, my hero showed up on a motorcycle, which is my stepdad now. But I remember the first time I met him, he rolled up on his Honda. He had like one of those, it was like a cruiser, but it was like a cruiser bike, but kind of like a sport bike too. And I remember he rolled up, and I was like, oh, I thought that was like the coolest thing, you know. And he let me get on it, and like right away, I just kind of like clung to him, you know. I think for one, I've always been like that as far as like I just have a lot of love to give, you know, really open. You know me, dude. I'm open, man, to everybody.
Right.
And when he showed up, and I was just like, oh, this guy is, you know, tall, handsome, buff. He was buff too, and he was tall, you know, like or he is tall, and then he taught me. He was a black belt in karate, so he would teach me karate. It was like the coolest thing. I remember the first time I beat up my brother. This is a good one, because my brother was struggling with him coming into our lives, and I don't know, and he knew that he was teaching me karate, so like I think in front of everybody he tried to like punk me. And then he did like a karate roundhouse kick. I ducked it and uppercutted him in the nuts. He dropped him. And I was like, it was like a moment in my life. But that was like it's the only time I worked my brother. Yeah. My brother, we had a different relationship. One, because he was a lot older than me, so we never really got to be close, like in any manner. You know, a lot of it was him trying to. I don't know. It's hard to say what he was trying to do, but he was definitely trying to make me tough. But it wasn't in me. So it just kind of looked like he was bullying me. And so he really, I mean, he used to torture me, you know, so that was,
dang.
Yeah. The good one was, besides, you know, pinning me down and knocking on my chest, or you know, your brother ever do the one where you spit and kind of like let it
pull it up?
That was a good one.
Yeah. Typical rough boy play. But you know,
older brother stuff.
I hear what you're saying.
So, you know, that was kind of just a weird thing. But in the midst of my mom's boyfriend at the time coming in and you know, them building a relationship. And just to kind of touch on too what was special about him. It was it was the first time, because I think my mom had like been dating a little bit, you know. I don't remember for sure, but I know when he showed up, it was the first time that we got to go on a date too. Like he took us to the movies.
So he brought you
took
you guys in and was like committed to like
he
the
wasn't
whole
just
family.
trying to hook up with my mom,
Exactly,
you know.
yeah,
Like he like wanted for us to get to know him and
win your hearts as well as your mom's.
And I remember, he would take us to dinner. He took. I remember the first movie he took us to see Terminator 2. That was legit. And he just, he did. He spent time with us, and my sister was, a baby, so he really kind of took a role as a father, and really, teaching her all the stuff that parents do, as raising a kid. So
right.
But in the midst of all that, and this was in the very beginning. So this was like I said, around 5 years old. It was when he came into our lives, and around had to be 6 or 7. It was at the end of first grade. I ended up moving to Texas with my grandparents.
Okay.
Which is kind of weird because I was the only one that went. And I actually just talked to my mom about this. It just came up in conversation, and she was like, "You were just supposed to go visit. You just never came back." And she's like, "I don't even know how it happened," because I ended up being out there from first grade to fourth grade. Not all of first grade. It was like the end of first grade, and then all the way to. And I came back to California when I was in the fourth grade.
That's a big chunk of your childhood.
Yeah. So I was like, I think came back when I was like 9 or 10.
So obviously time has passed, and you had that conversation with your mom, and she didn't remember it exactly how you did, but how it affected you. What did that look like for you? Did you see it as a fun thing, or was it?
And that was so that has different nuances, because going out there, I remember it was like the road trip out there. What was kind of interesting about that where we went, it was my grandfather had retired. And I was saying how my great-grandfather came over to work agriculture, right? Mm-hmm. The farm that my great-grandfather worked on, my grandfather, when he retired, bought that farm.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty
so
cool.
It is. And
that's where you were living?
Yes.
On the farm?
On the farm. Wow. So it wasn't an active farm, but we had all the barn, the stable.
So you became like a good old boy.
The silo they told us to never go by because it was like ready to fall any time, but I used to play inside of it all the time.
Wow.
Yeah, we're surrounded by cornfields, and
was there other kids there?
So
like cousins or?
I had two. Yes, I did go. My uncle went out there with his 2 kids. He had 2 boys at the time. My cousin Robert and David, but they were younger than me. Okay. So I was out there on my own essentially.
Right.
But I like a half mile down the road was our nearest neighbor, Sean, and we instantly became best friends.
Oh, that's
it was
cool.
Texas, so like the first day we moved in, him and his mom showed up, and she had brought like a pie or something like that, and just
welcome neighbor.
And me and him right away, because we were like he was a grade older than me, but we're the same age essentially, and
that's cool.
And that was it, man.
So, but you went to school out there. You were there from first to fourth grade. That's crazy.
And it was a little bit of culture shock because in first grade they already have periods.
Oh,
like it was only 3 periods, but you still had 3 different. I think like each class had 2 subjects in it.
And they had gym and shower.
And so when But so it was showing up. I was behind as far as my academics. So it took me that was a kind of a little bit of a struggle. It took some time to catch up to where they're at. Eventually I did.
Right.
And but that was fun, man. It was. I mean, I grew up where our property was lined with oak trees and just acres of just long green grass, beautiful. We had frogs and turtles and just all these wild, desert. I don't even know if they're desert. It's not desert, but just all these wildlife and just beautiful, just rolling clouds and the cornfield, man. I used to run through that cornfield. Not during not con season, because it was cotton in the spring and then corn in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah, during the
I
con
wouldn't
season,
know about
don't go through it.
Okay.
Get jacked up. But the cornfields was fun. Me and Sean, we used to play war. That was our game. Was war. We thought we were Navy SEALs. And just we always had our little plastic, guns and that's what we did, man. It was fun, man. Just school was good. It was a time in my life where I just didn't have any worries.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like. I mean, you were out there by yourself, but it sounds like it was just a cool little.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Cool
I mean, like kids
get
to. It was like like my poor kid. Like I can't even let him go outside, because he's kidnapped. But out there, dude, we ran wild.
Yeah.
And it was like it was legit.
That's awesome.
But that was the good part. The bad part is that I wasn't with my family. I had a baby sister that I didn't even know. I mean, I left when she was, I don't think she was 1 yet when I left. She might have been. I don't think so. My brother was, again, a lot older than me. Very little relationship with him. So, my stepdad, but he wasn't my dad at the time, but he was dating my mom. I mean, we started a relationship, but then I left shortly after.
Got broken up from that. Yeah.
So the one person I would miss was my mom, and it was, I don't know what would cause me to remember her, because I was like that. Like I forgot her, and then I would remember when she would call. I'm like, oh yeah, my mom, and then we would talk, and I would just tell her like whatever. I don't even know what I would tell her.
Yeah.
And I would just miss her sometimes, but when I did miss her, it would hurt. Like I remember thinking like, oh, I want my mom, but most of the time I was just hanging out, and it was just having a good
looking
time.
back on it, it's like, dang, that's kind of.
Yeah. I remember, rough. I remember specific moments, like just laying in bed and really just kind of my heart aching and or going to school, like, and just thinking about her and just being really bummed out about it, But I came back, fourth grade. And I think what happened was, I think my parents because we were living, before I left, we had moved from that little house in Whittier or the back house in Whittier to my grandparents' house that they left. They went and started renting that house out from them in Huntington Park. And actually and I think my mom doesn't remember, but from what I was remembering, it might have. I can't say for sure, but because I was like in a neighborhood where we talked about it, Richard Victorian and Christian, that was the same neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't a good area, and I was going to school in that area, and I think that's why they sent me away, because they were living there at the time
to maybe keep you away from that scene.
And my brother was going to St. Paul.
Oh, okay.
So he was in high school already.
Right.
So he didn't have to go to school in that area.
Yeah.
My sister wasn't in school. So it was just me that was going to school there. And it was like, I don't even remember. I do kind of remember school there. I don't know. It wasn't.
Right.
I don't know. Just weird, I guess, because I was there shortly. And then, but when they moved back to Whittier. When I moved back, they had moved back to Whittier. They had a house in Uptown Whittier. Big old house overlooking. It was up in the hills. It was legit. It was so much fun. That was dope. But what was weird about that is when I moved back, it was kind of like I was like an adopted child, because I didn't know anybody.
Huh.
I didn't know my sister.
Yeah.
I didn't know my brother. Now my dad is living. I never lived with him before.
Right.
And now he's living at the house. He's running the show, and then being with my mom again, I just remember feeling like an outcast. That's when I first started. I think I first started feeling like an outcast. Like,
and you felt like
I was an outsider.
Outsider in your own family.
My own family.
Yeah, that's rough. Man.
And so adjusting to that was tough, because my papa had I had all these new rules. It was just hard to adjust.
Did you butt heads with him, or was it just? No.
Yeah. I'm very. That's the thing about me. I'm non-confrontational. I don't argue. you yell at me all the time. I never say anything.
I always get my way. So that brings you into what age? Middle school?
I was in fourth grade when I moved back. So that whole year was kind of like adjusting to life. Even going back to school was different. This is how non-confrontational I am. They took me my first day of school. I think school already had started, but they took me in my class because it was like school already had started. My mom took me into class or whatever, and there was a Spanish speaking. It was like a Spanish class. Mm-hmm. I went in there, and I just sat down. And I remember just sitting there, and they went for a while, and then they were like talking to me, and I wasn't saying anything, and because I didn't understand, but I didn't have enough confidence to say like,
I don't think I'm supposed to be in here.
I don't speak Spanish, so I just sat.
Were you in the wrong class, or
they thought I spoke? Because I don't know.
They just put you in there because
the
way you look.
I think so.
Gosh. Dang.
And finally the teacher was like I think she said something in English. I was like, well, because I don't speak Spanish. She was just like, why aren't you talking, or why won't you say anything? I'm like, I don't speak Spanish. She was like, oh, so I ended up, but and then that's so crazy. I was in Uptown and that was fun too because we lived in the hills. My backyard was a hill and built forts up there, and it was fun. But things were still weird as far as me not feeling welcome. And then, so coming back was weird because my dad, my biological father, was back in the picture.
Okay.
He had at some point came back and was, really involved in my brother. My brother played football. So he was like really involved in that, and even my sister would see him on the weekend. So they were seeing him on a regular, and I came back, and it's like, oh, my dad, like I remember you, and I remember being excited, because I remembered him. My parents because my parents listen, they might be like, oh, how dramatic, but no, this is how it was, I did.
and this is all from your perspective and how you grew up and the things that you saw and the effect that it had on you.
So seeing my dad for the first time in probably like 3 or 4 years, something like that. 5, I don't know if it was like 4. It was a while.
Right.
Was kind of cool, I thought, and I was really, excited to see him and stuff. So that relation kicked off again. So what started then was a weird thing where my father, Javier, I have Javier and Scott. So Javier is my biological father. Scott's my stepdad.
Right.
Where Javier was, I don't know why, and it might have been I can't speak for him, but there was this thing where he would try to, I don't want to say manipulate, but he would talk bad about my parents. Mm-hmm. And then but I didn't want to defend them because I didn't want to offend him. Mm-hmm. And then at my house, they never said anything about him, but it was weird because they didn't speak at all. Like my dad totally avoided them. Like it was like I would see him on the weekend, and then he would drop me off around the corner, and I'd have to like walk up the hill to go home. Right. It was just stupid
in a weird.
It was very weird. It was almost like definitely having two different sets of parents, but the way they each treated me was different as well, and it was just hard. It was confusing for me
trying to navigate through that as a young kid.
But it was a lot of hurt, because I was sad to be away from my mom when I would have to go with him, but then I would be sad to go away from him when I had to go back home. I just wanted to be with everybody. I just to
be good.
I loved everybody, and it would hurt me and I already had been away, and I think I used to get hives a lot when my mom would leave. You know how hives are?
Well, yeah. Like a reaction.
Yeah. I would get like these welts on my body that would itch. it was because I would be having nervous breakdowns from my, like, anything, like if she went to the store, like I would just start breaking out because I was just like thinking that like she wasn't going to come back because, I don't know, because coming back, I just didn't want to leave,
And because of just the effects of the different comings and goings in your life, or the people going out of your life, or when you went to Texas and then your dad gone, all of that. I mean, I know that marriages are super hard and divorces are pretty common, and obviously, but it just has such an effect on the kids that you just sometimes you don't even really see it.
It was hard. It was hard, like you said, and it was hard to navigate the two relationships, especially with their divorce relationship was very unhealthy. Mm-hmm. They didn't speak to each other at all. There was no communication. It just wasn't good. And then, so that was that. So just kind of going through elementary school was just, like I said, it was just adjusting to life at home and then life with my dad that came back in our lives. Going into, and this was the first time where I started to, do things to please people, like where I wanted acceptance, mm-hmm. whether it was at home or at school. Mm-hmm. I would just anything to feel liked, to feel welcome, because I just felt unliked and unwelcome everywhere I went, whether it was at home or at school.
Right.
And so in the 4th grade, I thought it'd be cool if I smoked cigarettes.
In the 4th grade? Dang.
Because I thought, people who smoke cigarettes look cool. Mm-hmm. So that's when I started smoking cigarettes, was in the 4th grade. Jeez. And I remember my papa, he knew. He couldn't nail me, but he knew it at a young, and I remember that was something I used to stress out all the time about, like, man, he knows. But he never really busted me.
Wait, in 4th grade, you just like smoked cigarettes regularly?
Well, whenever I can get them. Well, my uncle, I had an uncle that had moved.
I mean, it's not funny, but
no, it is funny. I had an uncle that moved from New York. My stepdad's brother. He moved from New York when he first moved out here, he was living with us and he smoked a lot.
Oh, and you'd steal him?
I would steal him from him.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then I had a friend, my buddy James. Both his parents smoked, so we would just get cigarettes from whoever, and we just started smoking. But and I liked it. At first it was kind of I got all lightheaded or whatever, but then after a while you just kind of get used to it or something. It's just. So that was that, and that was kind of like all my elementary school, just trying to fit in with, the way I dressed. By the way, gone through a lot of styles for my life. 4th grade, I think I was like a break dancer.
Wait, how in 4th grade are you even deciding what you wear? Don't you just wear what your parents get you?
I would do anything. I would alter my clothes. My parents, they gave me a little bit of freedom. They were definitely annoyed by it, and especially my papa. He would be like, "What the hell are you wearing?"
I mean, I could see in like middle school,
but I would go and I used to like to shop at the Salvation Army, and it was actually thrift store, whatever, the same thing, but and get like polyester shirts and like windbreakers. We're stressed, but I thought it was like the best dress. It was so funny, and I was just so mixed up and everything. I would be like,
because you were trying to fit in and get acceptance.
I would be like playing basketball in my windbreakers, because I was a break dancer plus basketball player. But then my friends were a part of a Star Wars club, and I had to be in the Star Wars. So I was like a Star Wars geek too. Just anything, and just anything, just to have friends. That's all I wanted, was just someone to be like, oh yeah, you're cool, I like you. So that carried on into junior high. We moved, and I started in a new area, new school, different friends, and it was just like the same thing. It just amplified a little bit because that's when I really started wanting to get into like smoking weed, because that was like the next cool. That's what I was like. I found out.
Because other kids were doing
Well,
it?
I think I found out my brother. I'm like totally like my brother. You know, well, my brother used to get high or whatever. But anyways, you know.
Well, I mean, he's 6 years older than you, so.
But when I found out he was doing it, I was like, oh, I think my brother's the coolest, you know, even though he used to beat me up or whatever. You know, I wanted to be like him. So I started seeking that out. And finally, like, I think around 7th grade is when I started getting into marijuana, into the grass.
The swag.
Firecracker weed. And that getting into these mind altering substances, it changed something for me, because especially with the marijuana, I didn't have to feel anymore. Like, I noticed it right away. I was happy because I had always been, just always, for whatever reason, just like nervous, scared, sad. And getting into that, like, change, you know,
Was able to numb all that.
yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not only that, it made me happy. I would have a good time, you know. It'd be, you know, when you're high, you're everything's funny, and you just kind of forget whatever it was that you were thinking about.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah.
You know, and so I really started getting into that, and same thing, you know, just trying to just fit in and let everybody know that I was a pothead, so I can be like, oh, look at the, you know, cool
be with
kid,
that
you know?
group, or
And just kind of just living that life, and just really kind of forgetting about like the school. Like, school just became like
whatever.
Yeah, it wasn't even a thing anymore, you know. It was just
because you were so concentrated on fitting in or whatever, and it could have been anything, you know, drugs, or you were just trying to find a group,
yeah,
you know, and get in with them. So did that was in middle school when that started?
Yeah. And then, so this carried all the way through high school.
Right. And that's when we met.
Yeah. In high school, grade. In high school, what changed was, what added on to that part was not feeling comfortable with who I was. We went to a school that was predominantly white, and I was ashamed of my ethnicity. Like, I didn't want to be Mexican. I wanted to be white.
Really?
Well, yeah, I did. I think like 8th grade, freshman year, I actually wanted it. I wish I was black. Yeah. Like, I remember thinking, you know, it's so funny. I remember telling my mom, like, why do you name me Isaac? That's like the worst name ever, right? She's like, well, what do you want me to call you? I said, Julius, because I used to like basketball, and like Julius Irving.
Yeah.
So she was like, you want me to call you Julius? I was like, yeah. She's like, okay. And then she would like, it was like the one day she's like, Julius, and I just wouldn't answer. She's like, Julius. Like, Isaac, I'm talking. Oh yeah. So that didn't last, and then that kind of carried in. I mean, you always say how, like, I used to wear FUBU and stuff like that. Like,
that's it.
Like, I like that. I really like the black culture.
Yeah.
Well,
it's cool.
Yeah. Well, cool. You know, I liked hip hop music and, you know, rap and all that stuff. I was really into Wu-Tang. Like, that was like the jam for me. And when I
going to La Mirada,
playing football, well, that was carried on to freshman year, and then playing football, you know, I started to, you know, hang out with you and Rich and Gursey and just all the football players, you know. So again, just trying to fit in, like, okay, well, we're not listening to rap anymore. We're listening to punk rock music, which is still legit to this day. But then I was really trying to hide who I was, you know. I was trying to hide the reality of my life, which was a lower middle class Latino family, you know, that had my dad had, you know, okay, so at home with my stepdad, which is something I didn't touch on. At the end of my junior high, middle junior high, my dad got cancer, for one. So he stopped working. Oh, wow. So, which was kind of hard on the family because he was going through chemo. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I didn't know that until later, but they had given him like 3 months to live. My God. He was done.
Wow.
And then because he's powerful, because he's the man. He powered through that, and he's been in remission for like 20 years or something like that. So,
Dang.
but that radiation jacked him up. He's all jacked up, different things. But
Oh, you know what? I think I do remember you telling me about some of the effects of
yeah,
chemo and radiation.
so during that time, before that, he got laid off. He worked for Boeing. There was big layoffs down here in Long Beach. Then he got sick, and then after he recovered from that, he had to start traveling for work. Mm-hmm. He would go to, for a long time he was in North Carolina, just because he needed to provide.
Right.
So he was just out there. What I didn't realize was that from 8th grade till present, I would never live with him again. He was gone. We always thought it was temporary, but he just never came back home.
And it was because of work.
Because of work.
Right.
Yeah. It wasn't because my parents split up or anything like that. And that really was hard because, my dad left when I was young. I left. And then my brother had left. When I moved back from California, my brother had left to go live with my dad. He was gone. Again, like I said, I looked up to him, and then he was gone. And then, in junior high school, my stepdad leaves, and so
just a recurring pattern.
Yeah. So there was a lot of, I think at the time it was like chaos. Not really chaos. You kind of just go with the flow, that's all you can do. You don't think about it. But looking back on it, I think there was a lot of hurt, a lot of fear.
Yeah.
And so with him being gone, my mom, working full time and trying to raise me and my sister, and my brother was gone, but whatever he was doing.
Mm-hmm. You kind of do whatever you want.
Yeah. So I got to, kind of my mom didn't have a ton of control over me. Mm-hmm. She definitely would get crazy with me, but but you're only here so often. You can't watch me all the time.
Yeah.
And that's when I would go do whatever I was doing, And to her too, I think she knew that things weren't normal, because I think she overlooked a lot of the stuff that I was doing, which didn't help. And then my papa being gone, when he would come home, he didn't want to strain the relationship any more than what it was.
Exactly, yeah.
But at that time, it was teenage angst, and I, for whatever reason, I don't know how it is in a normal household, but I know I was couldn't wait till he would leave, because he would come, and I knew he would want to tell me stuff, but he didn't want to ruin the weekend or whatever. And I don't know, it was just weird. Right. It was really weird, man.
Yeah.
And actually it took years for that to kind of recoup. I felt we were really kind of no connection all the way through high school, all the way up until probably my mid-20s.
Mm-hmm. But now you guys have a great relationship now.
Yeah, but it took some mending. It was weird. It was just weird. I didn't know him, he didn't know me. He missed my adolescence, as far as my going through junior high and high school, and so it was just weird. But in high school, we just kind of went off the rails big time. I was playing football, which at one time was promising. I was really exceeding freshman year, sophomore year.
Yeah, you were all right.
3-year varsity, Drew. Don't forget that.
Yeah, I don't know who made that decision, but no, yeah, you're tearing it up.
But then junior year is when things really started to get out of hand. Junior year got crazy because had my driver's license, so now you have a little bit more freedom. Playing football got a little bit of steam as far as popularity, just because you're on the football team, and because I'm hanging out, and because I was hanging out with Drew.
Well, Little boost there.
Yeah, definitely the Drew boost. But so we got a cool
Guess
group.
out there just gonna think just a complete idiot I am, huh?
But Drew was. We always like to say that Drew on the old Bugs Bunny cartoons with the mobsters, and they had like the two big guys with the little mobster in the middle, like. Yeah, say.
Get them, boys.
That was Drew.
Listen, see, this is what we're going to do here.
So that's kind of how we walked around school. Drew was leading the pack. But it just started to really, the marijuana became a habit. That's when I became addicted to being stoned, being essentially just high in any way. I had to do it to just be normal, or not to be normal, to feel good.
That, and like you said before, to numb and to cope with the pain that you did have.
Looking back at it now,
pushing
that's what I was
down.
trying to do. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Especially, like I said, just the stuff that was going on at home. Even though it wasn't bad, I wasn't getting beat or anything. I mean, we had a house and we had everything. Never went without.
Yeah, but there was emotional scars that were there.
Yeah, I definitely had some holes that needed to be filled emotionally.
Yeah.
And I mean, my parents didn't know, because I didn't say anything. I kept it to myself. I didn't know how to express the way I felt, which was lonely and scared and hurt and all this stuff. And it was just weird, So junior year, got arrested for DUI.
I remember that.
Yeah. And that's kind of where it was the real turning point, because I kind of took that and went with it. I kind of I even tried to spin it where oh, I'm so cool, I got arrested,
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm an idiot, dude. And I really kind of just gave up because I didn't have my car anymore. I just really started to devalue who I was and what I was worth. My worth was I just didn't feel like I had any worth. So it really I really just kind of started to dive into that lifestyle. And that kind of carried on all the way through school and out of school. I ended up leaving my house, because I couldn't, I didn't want to listen to my mom and whatever. So I just kind of ran away. Luckily, Rich and his family were gracious enough to take me in and let me, even though.
Was that during high school or right after?
That was at the end of senior year.
So during school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I lived there for, a couple of years. And then, just working in construction, got my own place, whatever. But shortly after high school, I met a girl that
What girl?
I fell crazy in love with. You know what? Everybody wants to pump up their wives. Because I feel like they're gonna get in trouble if they don't. But no, this is real. This is. I don't want this to be that. But nice. I when I met my wife Wayna,
Shout out to Wayna.
We were 19. We met at a house party.
Crazy kids.
We were macking hard the first time we met.
Mac Daddy of the year.
And I remember just needing to be with her. I'm missing. It was crazy. That crazy love. Yeah. It was just obsessive, just unhealthy. And it was fun though. She was going through her own thing where she was actually, at the time, I didn't know. I thought she just liked to party, but she was just experimenting. That was all new to her.
Right.
But for me, I was a vet.
You'd already been in it.
I was showing her the ropes. And that was craziness, and when we first started dating, because of the drugs and the alcohol, and me really kind of not living up to my potential. I was in construction, and I learned a lot of skills there, but I was just whatever money I made went to partying. You know, wasn't able to save any money or do anything good with it. You know,
Right. Yeah.
So right away, I started. You know, when we started living with each other, like we started shacking up like real early in our relationship. And she was the responsible one. You know, she was kind of holding down the fort, and I was just kind of torturing her with my bad habits. And then I had broken up with her because I think I didn't know how to deal. I mean, for sure, an idiot. I didn't know how to deal with like stability. I don't think, and like I felt that we were starting to settle down.
Kind of scared you.
And I think, and I just wanted to wow out, you know, and I think at the time I just didn't want to be tied down, you know. So we broke up, which was really, poor girl, I like totally broke her heart, you know. Like we were living with each other.
Yeah.
But I came crawling back because I'd realized during that short stint that I missed her incredibly, and I was just not happy. And I knew for a fact I would never meet someone that would love me the way she loved me. And that's all I ever wanted in my whole life was someone to like love me where I didn't have to think about it, you know, where I didn't have to
try
guess like she loved me. She used to tell me I love your dark skin, you know, and that's something that I was always struggling with, you know, like I didn't like my dark skin. And she was the first one. She's like, oh, I love it, you know, like, and made me feel confident, you know, for the first time in my whole life, where I felt a little bit secure. And I just knew that I would never have to, worry about, you know, having someone love me or looking for someone. Like she was there, you know. I mean, I had to beg for her to take me back, but when she did, she had some stipulations.
Yeah.
She had decided during that time that she didn't want to live that party life anymore.
Okay. And
she was like, I want to live a godly life. And that's when I went, huh?
Yeah. What's that? Because you have no background.
I grew up in Catholic church, so I did.
Okay.
I grew up in a Catholic church my whole life. We used to actually, when I was like in elementary school, we used to go pretty much every Sunday. Like I said, I used to love going just because we'd get tamales afterwards. But
you left that out on this one.
Service.
You left it out on the story today. But
what, about going to church?
Yeah.
Well, that was definitely, you know, something that we did.
So you had that background, but you didn't know, you didn't have a relationship, or was God real to you?
Well, so this was the funny thing. So grew up in the church. So she had in Catholic church. Stopped going junior high, and we would go for Christmas and stuff like the Easter, the big holidays, Ash Wednesday.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
My wife had said, you know, I want to go back to church and whatever. I was like, oh yeah, of course I was going to say yeah. Like, oh yeah, for sure. Whatever. I wanted to go back with her. You know, so we went to church, and that first time that I went was the day I realized that Jesus was God. My whole life I went to church and I didn't know that.
Oh wow.
You know,
and why? Because of the sermon? Or like
whatever Pastor Schoening, shout out to Pastor Schoening.
So as he was talking, he was like, wait a second.
Yeah. And
it says that here?
And I was like, oh, well, I had an aha moment because when we were in high school, my senior year I played volleyball. Our volleyball coach had a tattoo of Calvary on his arm. And I didn't know what it was. And I just had it was kind of a cool tattoo. And I go, what is that? You know, because it's the three crosses on the hill or the mountain or whatever.
Okay, yeah.
And he goes, it's Calvary. And I was like, okay, like, and he was like, you don't know what Calvary is? I go, no. He goes, do you know who God is? And I go, yeah. And he goes, who is he? God. He goes, yeah, but who is God? And I go, I don't know. It's God. And he goes, oh, he's like, why don't you go find out and then let me know if you find out who he is. And I was like, okay, this guy's a weirdo. So when I went to church and I found out Jesus, I was like, Oh, that's what he was
That's what
talking
he was talking about.
That's what he was talking about.
Huh.
And I mean, good for him for not like pushing it on
Yeah.
anybody, but you know, he was throwing it out
He
there.
opened the door,
Yeah, yeah.
or at least let's see if you were gonna.
If I was interested at all.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was at that time and I felt convicted. You know, I felt like, oh, like this whole Jesus thing, you know, and kind of living that life of righteousness. And we're going consistently, and that's when.
This was at Rock Harbor.
So we first started at there was a little church. It was her church she grew up in. It's called the Western Christian Assembly, WCA. It was in Westminster Christian Assembly. Good. It was like just like a. It was an Assemblies of God church.
Okay.
But the pastor and the family, they all did it. But it was a small congregation. There was probably like 20 heads in there.
Okay.
But you know, he taught well, and I learned a lot. But then we started seeking something that was more our demographic, and that's how we ended up at Rock Harbor, Costa Mesa. And then from there, we accidentally found First Family Church, where we really started to grow.
Okay. But
during this whole time, I had never recovered from my addictions. Although I was feeling convicted and I kind of knew what I was doing was wrong, I never could step away from the pot smoking or the getting drunk and other stuff that I had kind of was doing, you know, had picked up habits of. And all I always wanted, because for one, I was doing it behind my wife's back.
Right.
She didn't know. And so that was always like kind of like a stress of mine. And then the bondage that I had was terrible, because I couldn't go without. It was just being so tied down by something, so held back by a substance, you know, was devastating, because I knew it, especially going to church. Like, I knew I would feel so convicted, and I would, like, every Sunday be like, okay, I got it, you know, like I can do this. And then, but the physical addiction that I had to getting high would just overpowered. And this went on for years, actually. I actually got better at it. There were times where I'd be sober for a while, and then you just, you know, I would fall off the wagon. And then we had my wife got pregnant in 2010. It was like January. As a matter of fact, I think we found out, might have been like the first of, I think like New Year's Day. We found out that she was pregnant.
Wow. This is 2010?
2010.
Okay.
And I remember laying in bed, and she's like, I think I'm pregnant or whatever. And she took a pregnancy test, and sure enough, and we were just like so excited, you know, we were just tripping out, you know, we're like, oh my gosh, just planning. We were ready. We were already married, you know, and we were already living on our own, doing our own thing. And so we were ready to start a family. We already had been married for a couple of years, because we got married in 2008, and we were pumped. And then at our, I don't know if it was the first, it was like pretty early. No, actually, no. We were about 6 months in when we found out that our baby she was diagnosed with trisomy 18, and which is like it's a chromosome thing where she was missing her 18th chromosome. So pretty much that meant that she would not be compatible for life. Like she wasn't going to live. And that was devastating, because we were so excited. And for me personally, I was thinking about it was a bad reason to get sober, but I was going to be sober, you know. I was like, I'm going to be a good dad, you know. I'm going to get this right. I'm going to get my life together, because I was still struggling at the time. I just, for whatever reason, just couldn't like lead a good career or anything like that, you know, just because everything all my iniquities had been held me back from pushing forward. And
so for you guys, I mean, that was just, I couldn't even imagine.
Finding out was hard.
Blow that.
I remember the first thing I thought was, because I always felt unworthy for my family, for my friends. I just never felt good enough. And then when that happened, I remember thinking, I'm not even good enough to have a baby. Like I'm not even good enough to have a healthy baby is what I was thinking. Man. And that was hard to sit in, because I just kind of reaffirmed that I'm just not like good. Like I'm not good enough.
That's how you felt?
That's how I felt.
But it was nothing that you could have done, or
my whole life I felt like I never did anything right. And then when things weren't going right, I'd be more destructive to say I did it on purpose type deal, to kind of like, that's not, like, wasn't by accident, I did it on purpose. Right. It was self-destructive. Right. So I couldn't say that it's just me. I can say like, oh, I consciously did it.
So at that time you had a relationship with God or Jesus,
yeah,
but it was stifled, or whatever you want to say, by the things you were still struggling with, your addictions.
Yeah.
So then this happens, and then it's like things change at that point, or it just
when we found out and all that was going down, and like I said, the pain and the hurt, there was a time where I tried to, because I thought that if I was sober, that God would reward me with a healthy baby, that he would cure her. And I prayed to God so hard, so hard.
During the pregnancy?
I would, because what happened was they wanted us to terminate at 6 months, because they doctors were like, she's not going to live to full term. And even she does, she's going to die within birth, like either during birth or like right after birth, and because she had a heart defect. And
right. And then they're probably talking about the Wena's health, or what that could mean for her. Is that why they?
No, it was more for because the baby. They just didn't want to. They didn't think it was worth it to go through a whole pregnancy, and have no outcome. Right. Wow. And so switched doctors. Yeah. And we ended up at St. Joseph's with a Christian doctor, and he was really supportive and really kind of walked us through the whole thing and really gave us confidence.
So you as a couple decided not to terminate because of your beliefs and your faith, right? Yes. Yeah, that's
absolutely.
I mean that. Yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, being 6 months. I mean, we seen sonogram. I mean, we already had done like the 3D sonogram. Is that what they call it, sonogram?
Yeah.
Okay. I think so. We already had seen her. We already had found out the sex, and we were already like buying things, and and then we found out after we already were planning, making a nursery and all that stuff. But it was painful to pray to God, because I believed, and just asking God, like, God, I will do anything if you cure her. I will tell the world about you. I will make her life a testimony to you, like make her a miracle, and just really with all my heart, everything inside me, just asking for this miracle, this one thing. Yeah. And anybody can do it. You can do it. And it didn't happen. The way his will wasn't my will. And
did that shake, or
it didn't? It didn't, because I just had faith. I just had faith in God. I did. It hurt me. And there were times when, like, after she had passed away, which was kind of a miracle in itself, because we had her for 21 days.
Yeah, I remember that.
This is something stupid that I kind of like think where I see him in that, because she lived for 21 days, which was like 3 weeks exactly. So I did think of like 3 times 7. know, 21. I
Yeah,
don't know.
no, I like numbers, and I do that a lot too.
So,
But that, I mean, that was a miracle in itself because, I mean,
we got to be with her.
you had
We did. But during that time was hard.
I couldn't
During
imagine.
that time was hard because we were waiting for her to die. Yeah. And I remember just asking, like, I just like holding her and be like, man, I kind of wanted it to get over with, you know, because it was just like, just hold her and her like gasping for air all the time. Man.
You know, and I think about that time because we weren't super close at that time because I was kind of doing my own thing and kind of wilding out, and but we were still always in contact.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know if you're gonna get to this point of, I just remember, I mean, right now just getting choked up, and obviously you are, the emotions that are coming from even reliving or thinking about those moments. But I remember the funeral, and, you know, I'm kind of doing my own thing, but I also have the background of knowing God and knowing who God and Jesus is, and seeing you and Wayna up on the stage, just, I don't know. It was unreal to me because I couldn't even imagine being in any state of mind of keeping composure or just not losing it, you know, like completely losing it. And you guys were up there talking about the blessings of God and just the blessings that you guys had to have her for those 21 days. And I remember I went to the funeral with my sister, and I was wrecked after that because just how convicted I was of the way I was living. And then, but I don't know. It was just,
You know what? I forgot about all that. Because I do, now that you're saying it, just right now, I do remember really kind of praising God during that time, because we did feel blessed for being able to be with her and hold her, you know, and put her.
and I feel like you guys like really leaned in to God to get you through that, you know, relying on Him.
We did.
To still be sane people after freaking.
We did.
That loss.
But I think everything was it was so kind of traumatizing. I don't want to say traumatizing, but it was so different and hard that it was kind of numb. I don't know. It's like,
or like in shock.
Yes.
Almost. Yeah.
Like I remember because she actually died in my arms. Like I was holding her. Like she started to go down. My dad had visited, and then like right when he left, like she started like having trouble breathing, and I knew it, and freaking knew it, man. And so we stayed up all night with her, and then she ended up in the morning. She ended up just she took her last breath, and then me and Wayne were just holding her, and she died in our arms. And then but yeah, it was kind of hard to realize all of that had happened, and that she was actually gone. It was weird. It was weird. And then sending her away in the stupid van, like it was just like, this is not supposed to be like this, you know, just not.
It's not.
Man, it sucked. But what I did, because it was so painful to think about it, I never dealt with it. Even to this day, leading up to this podcast, thinking about that, it was hard. I still to this day, like I can't, it's hard to remember her. Mm-hmm. I want to remember her. I want to think about her face and everything, but it hurts, man.
The pain.
Gosh. So after that happened, of course, the best thing to kind of forget is to kind of dive back in, you know, because God didn't answer my prayer. And I told him, you know, like, because I did during that time, I was clean, you know, I was trying to do whatever to please him, to, you know, get what I wanted, you know, and didn't work. So like, whatever, then, you know, just do what I know best, and whatever's wasn't to make me feel good, and be happy again.
Numb it.
Yeah. But we were heavily involved in a church, so it was hard because I was convicted, and I had people in my life where, would hold me accountable for stuff like that. So it was very low pro and in secret. But I was battling. I would stop again and start, and that's something I dealt with until my second child was born, and then it all came to a head, where I had to tell my wife about what I was doing, and it was bad, but we worked through it, and I from that day, when I really told God, like, Lord, I do not want this anymore. Help me, give me the strength. Just I can't do it, and I just, for whatever that time, that was it, dude.
Was ready to stop.
I did.
But probably, through the grace of God.
Well, it was only with him.
Yeah.
I asked him. I'm like, I can't do this on my own. And he gave me the power, man. And that was in 2012, and I've been sober since.
Yeah.
And I even, through sobriety of substances, I haven't even drank alcohol in, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years, something like that. Like, it's been a while.
Right.
I just don't drink. And it was something that was kind of gradually that happened, where we just didn't want alcohol in our house, and then that turned into just all of a sudden I'm just not drinking anymore. And then now
that was just the choices you made for yourself.
No, for sure.
And your family.
And now I just thank God for sobriety. I just like, thank you for not desiring it or wanting. Like, he really took the want away from me, and my whole life. I mean, not my whole life, but I mean, guess fourth grade,
long part of it.
I was always craving to be altered, for my mind to feel different, and for whatever, my body to feel different. And for the first time, I felt that life was reality was way too good to disrupt.
Yeah.
And so, we had Kaya in 2012. We had Uriah in 2014.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Right.
And then we had Ella Bear in 2016. So, gosh, dad. But
full.
I just kind of gave my life to God at that point, when I had really asked, when I was leaning on for sobriety, and really kind of like chose to believe in him and just follow him and lean on him for strength in all that I do. And my life totally shifted from one direction. In our faith, we talk about being on a path. The path of righteousness. And it's real, man. I was on a offbeat path where I was like having to scale walls and rocks or whatever was on that path that kept on stumbling me. And then I, chose to be on this path that was following Jesus, where, well, it's kind of easy to walk on this path. It's like all of a sudden it's kind of a downhill walk instead of an uphill. I mean, you can't say it's hard in things that, the world tries to drag you in, but it's different. The walk I was on led me to go back to school, because I wanted to be a provider for my family. So I ended up at Vanguard University, got my degree in business over there. So I went to a Christian private school, and got to learn a ton about my faith, because I had to take a bunch of theology classes. So that was kind of cool. That was a real good experience. It was hard, just because I was working full time and raising a family. We had you can on my grades, if you look at my transcript, you can tell every time I had a kid. It's like
dropped a little bit,
be like A's, B's, and then like C, D, like oh. So and then
but isn't it amazing when like you choose to? I mean, God blesses us with certain things, but I think it's also too, like, when you start going on the right path and having the right goals in mind, like things just kind of line up, and it's.
I ended up getting in with PepsiCo, who I work for now, and just that alone, I mean, just changed my life. I mean, my wife didn't have to work anymore. So she's a homeschool mom, #homeschool mom.
Yeah. Holding it down.
And it's just our whole lives are different, you know? And I really just kind of gave my life to God and been kind of just following him. And where we're at now is I'm at a church where I lead the operations, community of great people that I love, a pastor that I love, multiple pastors that I love. And
we're doing this
and kind of like I think about like how because I get frustrated with my choices that I made in my life. I get real frustrated. I'm like, why? I could have been so much further along, you know, in my career, or could have been so much better off, you know, financially or whatever. But if my life wasn't the way it turned out, I might have never met my wife. Maybe I never would have had a God encounter. I don't know. All I know is that I'm happily married. I got a beautiful family. And what I was thinking about, you know, leading up to doing my story is where we're at right now with this podcast. That if those things wouldn't have happened, we probably wouldn't be doing this, sharing the good news of Jesus. Yeah. And that's what kind of pumps me up, you know, where I think like, yeah, things are not the way I probably would have liked it to be, or I imagined, you know, like,
yeah,
I mean, cause I imagine myself in a Ford Raptor, you know, living in Orange County somewhere, something lame, but you know, my life is complete. I live in Ontario, in the foothills of the desert, of the high desert. You know, like
you wouldn't have called that, you know, 15 years ago.
But I'm happy, man.
No,
I am freaking.
I know, I could see it.
So it's something I've always struggled is being content with myself, with my circumstances, all that stuff, and I'm happy, man. I'm just stoked on life. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's still, I mean, we live in the world and there's always, you know, whatever kind of struggle or whatever kind of thing that we're battling. But at this point right now, I'm just, I'm still just trying to heal and kind of the things that have been helping me with my healing is leaning on God and recognizing Jesus. I mean, leaning up to, so right now we're in Good Friday. We got Resurrection Day, Sunday. That, and then thinking, like really kind of looking at that and what happened to Jesus and what he went through in my story, you know, with my daughter, Stella Grace. And I was thinking about, I was reading about how Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane and how he was begging God for the cup to pass him. He was begging God for a different way. He did not want to suffer and die because he knew what it was going to be like. More so, he knew that he was going to be separated from God. And he just was like,
if there was any other way.
Yeah,
exactly.
And
but then what does he say?
And then knowing that, but let your will be done.
Yeah, not my will, but
your will.
Him submitting completely.
But knowing that he went through that the living God was begging the Father. I mean, he was begging God, God, please, like, if there's anything else that can be done, like, let it be done.
Let's do that one.
Yeah. Right? If there's an option B, I definitely want option B.
We should take it.
Knowing that he went through that, it made me feel a little comfort, because it was like, oh, if God went through that, then he knows how I felt for sure. He heard my cries. He heard me for sure. He heard me.
Yeah. And he was there weeping with you.
Yeah. And so that brought me some comfort in the last like week or so, you know, kind of knowing that part, knowing that Jesus was human, that God was human. He hurt the way we hurt.
Right.
And that he laments with us, you know, that he carries that pain with us if we're willing to give it to him.
Right.
And that's something I haven't been willing to do just because I'm not willing to remember and think about it. But knowing that he understands the way I feel helped a lot. But I'm still, like I said, I mean, it's still hard to
Because we're in process always, you know.
And as far as like my insecurities about myself, although I'm, you know, 6 foot, chocolate skin, 225 pounds of just beef, just GMO.
The point?
My point is I'm still really uncomfortable with myself and still feeling rejected all the time, still feeling alone a lot, feeling rejection, feeling unwanted, feeling like I don't fit in is still something that I struggle with. But again, looking at Jesus' life and realizing all the stuff that he did, all the miracles he performed, all the love that he gave, he still was rejected in the very worst way. Is what Good Friday was kind of about, you know, like.
And he did that and went through it for you.
Yeah.
For your sins and died for those sins.
So
you specifically as well as everyone else in the world individually.
Yeah. And knowing that I'm not alone in that either. That our God felt that. He felt that rejection. He felt the looking at everybody and being like, no, like, I love you guys, you know, like I'll do anything for you guys, you know, and you still feeling that rejection. It's kind of the way I am, you know. I'm willing to, you know, I'm not a hater, man. Like, I don't even know where that is in my heart. I don't have it. If anything, I love too much. And then the one thing that where I'm able to kind of look at myself and say like everything's gonna be okay, that I'm fine, that no matter what will happen in the future, no matter what happened in the past, is I kind of look at when Jesus was being baptized, and you know, the heavens opened up and the Holy Spirit flew on him like a dove. And God said, "This is my son. In him I'm well pleased." And I just think we're his creation. God knows me. He made me. Everything I went through, although I don't know the purpose completely. I mean, some of it, like I said, led me to this podcast, my marriage podcast, this church, me right now witnessing to God, to everybody, witnessing that God is real and alive. I hear him tell me, "This is my son, and in him I'm well pleased."
Amen.
And I just think, thank you for that, Lord, for accepting me, for making me the goofy, loud, you know, impulsive guy that I am. I mean, sometimes it's hard to kind of look back on my conversation and be like, man, I really shouldn't have said that. But saying, you know, that's the way God made me, you know, whether I like it or not. I mean, I can put my, you know, one foot up on the wall leaning against it and kind of my sunglasses on and look cool as I want, but it just doesn't really fit with me. I'm a goofball.
And you're a part of God's group. You're his child, and you're in that group. You're accepted. You're his child that he loves to the core, because he knows every single bit of you, but yet loves you completely. Yeah,
man. And that's what I sit, and that's what I live off of, man. That's my, you know, he talks about the water. You drink his water, you'll never be thirsty. You eat his bread, you'll never be hungry. And it's true, man. I don't need any. When I really kind of just think about my relationship with Jesus and what he's done for my life and what he has for me, it's like, oh, this is it. I don't need anything else. And that's where we're at, man. And all I want to do now is witness to people. I just want to testify what God's done in my life, and just try with all my life, just to let people know that he's real, he's alive, and he has all the answers. He has all the peace. He has all the good. He has everything that we need. Not only that he's given us opportunity to live with each other. He's given me the opportunity to go see my daughter one day. And that's all I have hope for. I just want to say that because my parents listen, that I love them. My wife listens. I love her. I'm sorry for all the pain I've caused everybody. Because during those times, I'm sure my parents were there for me when I went to rehab. When I got arrested, when just anything I ever needed, they were there. They weren't just like, oh, this guy's a screw up or whatever. No, they tried their best. They loved me. My parents loved me. We have a good relationship with all my parents right now. It was just my emotions and stuff like that, and my uncertainty about life and where I fit in it was so skewed and so lost and chaotic, and it was just bad. I didn't know how to live. So needless to say, I just I love my parents, and I love what they did for me, and that I'm good. That they did good. I'm
you made it. You're here.
And my wife too. I just want to let the world know that I have the best wife in the world. Baby, I love you. We're going to make love tonight. Wait, what?
Oh, boy. No, dude. I mean, wow. Great story.
I give it a B+ like the rest of my life.
When you were talking about being vulnerable and, other guests that have come on, I mean, you were right there, your open book that you gave us, and I appreciate it. I know you, but I feel like I know you a little bit better after tonight, so that's awesome. I think it's just a testament of the grace and love that God has for us, that all those things that you went through and all the different directions you could have gone, down a deeper ditch or a wrong way street, even though you did probably go down some wrong, streets along your way, God loved you, man. He took care of you, and he got you to this point.
Yeah, he did.
And it's amazing.
There's so
God's always working.
There's so many things that it could have been bad.
Yeah.
I mean, bad things were happening, but there's so many times where it just could have been real bad.
Yeah, for sure.
And I always think, like, man, definitely had his looking out for me one way or another, So I just thank God for everything, for sure.
Well, all right, let's close this thing out.
I think we can go another 20.
Let's check here on the time. Yeah, we're good. So once again, listeners out there, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoy this episode. Share it with your friends. Or go on the One Story Podcast Facebook page. Like us. Be a part of the group. Check us out on Instagram. Let us know who you are and where you're listening. We want to interact with you guys. We see the stats, and we see it's in different states. We've even seen different countries. So thank you, whoever's listening. And if you want to drop us a line and let us know who you are and how this podcast maybe is helping or impacting or whatever it may be, we want to hear that. So just thanks again for listening. We'll close this out, and love all you guys, and happy Good Friday, happy Easter, Resurrection Day coming up.
With that, I will ask that you open your eyes, listen closely, soften your heart, and ask God to reveal himself to you.
Amen.